Welcome to Touchdown Town on BetsTV. I'm Gilles Gallant with FTM Bets and BetsTV. It's week 4, Brenden. We're here every Sunday morning. Going to be helping you make top quality decisions for your touchdown prop bets. Clear your throats for week 4 because it is time to go. And I'm going to welcome in my esteemed co-host, Brenden Deeg of National Football Post, who is, by all accounts, an Eagles fan. We will not hold that against him. And Brenden, through 3 weeks of Touchdown Town, had a pretty awful week 3 by my standards. I went 0-5. Just got skunked. I'm 6-9 now through 3 shows, still 2.1 units of profit. And for all touchdown scores for myself, I'm still up 15 units on the year. Special shout out to thank you to Kyle Juszczyk. And Brenden, before we get going, I just want to remind everybody as well to check out my weekly show, Dog Day Afternoon. That's Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. This past week, we had Ian McMillan from Bedside and one of my good buddies. We talked a lot of NFL futures, hot takes. And I hope you guys check that out and make sure to check in the show next week at Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on BetsTV. Now, Brenden, last week I let you go first. I went 0-5. Never again.
We got to switch it up.
I know. Yeah. I know. So, I'm not really a man of luck and that kind of stuff, but it was bad vibes right from the get-go. So I'm gonna go first. And here we go. So my first touchdown score pick for week 4 is Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. Anytime touchdown at plus 280. Those odds are available at FanDuel. Brenden, he leads the team in all targets. He's second on the team in red zone targets. He plays 93% of the snaps. That leads all Colts wide receivers. And you may notice from the slide, Brenden, there's no D there for the Dolphins. It's because they haven't been playing defense. They allowed 27.7 points per game through 3 games, 5 passing touchdowns. I mean, they are facing your boy Carson Wentz. Maybe will correct it here with some of his turnover-prone abilities. But I really like Pittman in this spot, especially at plus 280.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I actually think the Colts are going to win this game. I think they're 2-point underdogs. It's kind of a must-win for Carson Wentz in that Colts team. So I think they're going to have to push the ball down the field. So I think Michael Pittman's going to get a lot of work today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just think getting a wide receiver 1 at plus 280. I know Zach Pascal technically has more red zone targets and obviously more touchdown catches this year. But Pittman is very talented. I think the Wentz and that team is going to have to throw a lot against this team. And even though I think that the Dolphins secondary is very good, I think Pittman should be able to score against them this week. Brenden, what is your first pick for week 4?
Okay, so last week I went with Elijah Moore on the New York Jets, and they didn't need to score points, so it didn't work out too well. But I'm going back to the New York Jets. We're going with Corey Davis plus 225 against the Tennessee Titans. This is my favorite one of the week. So if you're going to pick one of my 5, lock this one in. I actually think the Jets are going to win this game outright as well. But let's stick with Corey Davis here. The Titans' pass defense is atrocious. They've allowed the 27th most passing yards, and they're tied for 30th in the most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. And Corey Davis is always on the field. He's been on the field. He was on the field 94% of the time last week. He is their number 1 option. I don't think Zach Wilson has played too bad over the first 4 games. He's made some kind of tough decisions, but you can see the arm talent's there. The Jets got to win at some point against a banged-up Titans team. I think they pull it off, and I think Corey Davis is going to be kind of the main focal point of that offense. Plus 225 is just juicy odds. It's my favorite one of my 5. So, again, if you're going to follow one of my 5, hammer that one.
Absolutely, and getting a wide receiver 1 who has been getting targets is pretty good value at that spot. I think a lot of people will look at week 2 and just how Wilson got exposed and maybe kind of a recency bias and thinking again, he's played some pretty good pass defenses in 3 weeks. Now playing against the Titans, which is the bottom of the barrel, especially based on stats. So we're going to go with pick number 2 for myself. This one is a tight end with the Cleveland Browns. I'm going with Austin Hooper. Anytime touchdown, plus 275. Those odds are available at PointsBet. I think he's the safest receiving pick for the Browns. He leads the team in targets and red zone targets in 2021. And since the start of last season, he has 12 targets in the red zone. He's scored 5 times on those attempts. And you will notice when you look at the Baker Mayfield passing attempts, he really loves throwing to his tight ends. In 2021, they make up 42% of all passing attempts. Hooper has just under 20% of them. And I know that the Vikings defense, if you look at them, they haven't allowed a touchdown to a tight end yet this season. But then when you look a little deeper on who they faced and how they fared, they've allowed 15 catches on 15 targets, 222 yards to tight ends in 21. That latter stat of the yardage is bottom 5 in the NFL. And now you're facing a team that loves to run the ball and loves to throw to their tight ends. Again, I wouldn't hate if somebody wanted to bet on David Njoku as well, but I think Austin Hooper is the best value right now over the likes of Odell Beckham or Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt for the Browns in this matchup.
He's definitely the best value on the Browns today, that's for sure. There's not a ton there. And Austin Hooper, look, he's got the big contract. He's a part of that offense. I like this one a lot.
Pick number 2. What do you got, Brenden?
So we are going with Freddie Swain plus Freddie Swain plus 310, the Seattle Seahawks. Look, this one is kind of just about health on Seattle as well. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are banged up heading into this game. It looks they're both going to play. I'm more worried about Lockett. Lockett's hip injury. It looked a little more serious than it actually was laid out to be. He didn't practice on Thursday. Was a limited participant on Friday, and he's going to play, but I think he's going to be on somewhat of a snap count. They need him in the long run, so I don't think they're going to just crush him with snaps in this game. And look, Freddie Swain has been a solid wide receiver 3 for that team. They like him a lot. He's flown up that depth chart. Plus 310 is pretty good value, in my opinion, for a guy like him, who I think is going to play at least 65% of the snaps today. And the 49ers secondaries played well for the first 4 weeks, but there's a lot of young guys on that secondary, so I don't trust them a lot. This one is more just kind of the plus 310 value, I think, is one you just can't pass up.
Yeah, and one of the things that I used to do a lot because of Seattle's passing offense and the way that Russell Wilson throws the ball, one of my kryptonites that I used to bet on was the wide receiver 3 for Seattle when it was always David Moore.
Yeah, David Moore,
plus 350, plus 400.
Yeah.
And now Swain is into this role, and Lockett's injury did not look good. I'm shocked that he's actually playing this week. Metcalf, I didn't really see as much of a being nicked up from week 3. I think it might have just been some stuff in practice. I think he'll still be just as effective. Yeah,
Metcalf is going to 100% play. It's more the Lockett side of things where I think we'll get a little dicey. I think he's going to be on a snap count. I think they're going to kind of rotate between wide receiver 2.
Awesome. Yeah, so Jeff Swain at plus 310, decent value for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go to pick 3 for myself. This one's a familiar pick of myself. I took him in week 1 and in week 2. We're going with Kyler Murray again, Brenden. Kyler Murray,
baby.
Anytime touchdown.
Love
plus
it.
155. These odds are available at FanDuel. He is one of 6 players in the NFL to score in the first 3 weeks of the season. He had 10 rushing touchdowns in the first 9 games in 2020. And as much as I respect the Rams defense, they've allowed 2 quarterbacks to rush for touchdowns already this year. Justin Fields did it in week 1. Tom Brady did it in week 3. And I've been kind of scanning the books and looking at different odds to see what Kyler is being listed at. And I've seen him as low as minus 105. I've seen him around the plus 120 range. At plus 155, these odds are disrespectful. So I think if he scores this week, we need to come up with a new term for auto bet, and we just call it the Kyler Murray.
Yeah. 100% agree. Once you texted me earlier on the week that he was even in plus odds, I knew it was an automatic hammer. I sprinkled on it. I can't lie. I didn't make my card because it hit your card. But this is like anytime he's plus odds, like you said, it should be an automatic bet.
And it's one of those things too, is it's really only 2 quarterbacks that I feel very comfortable if you were to bet them at plus odds, just because of their shiftiness and their athleticism of guys who can get around the edge when they break out a bootleg in the pocket. And it's Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. Those are the only 2 that I trust in that spot. Even Josh Allen, as good as he is, he's more of a trucker, more of a bulldozer. Will try to go between the tackles. And again, I just think that in this matchup, the fact that he's healthy, I think at plus 155, this is a steal.
100%.
Brenden, let's hear your third pick of week 4.
All right, Jill, let's get greasy here. We're going with David Montgomery, 2+ touchdowns, plus 750. I'm not crazy. I promise. I am not insane. I think this one's got tremendous value at plus 750. Look, the Lions defense against running backs is on a historic pace right now to be bad. They have allowed 8 touchdowns to running backs, 5 rushing and 3 receiving. That leads the league by far. No one's even close. And Montgomery's going to get touches now. I think that Matt Nagy's realized that his offense is kind of stuck in mud. David Montgomery has been kind of the one guy on this offense so far that's been playing well. I think he gets a ton of touches today with rookie quarterback Justin Fields in there. And they have the same information that we do. They see that the Lions run defense and just in general defense against running backs is terrible. Plus 750 is a lot, so I don't recommend putting more than a half a unit on this. But I think this is great value. It's one like I couldn't think. I was staring at him like this has to make my card. Like I'm not gonna be a wimp here. I'm gonna hit it on with one of my 5 bets. And look, 2 touchdowns again. It's a long shot, but I like this one a lot. It's my favorite 2+ touchdown bet I've seen all year.
I think you go full unit on this one because of the fact of the Lions defense.
Yeah,
Aaron Jones pretty much scored 4 touchdowns on them. They allowed a bunch of touchdowns to running backs in week 1. Week 3, they were actually able to neutralize the Ravens' run offense, shockingly. But even last year in 2020, they allowed the most touchdowns to rushing touchdowns in the NFL. It's trending like that again in 2021. I like this bet, and I think if people are watching and they're fairly confident in this kind of bet, go full unit at plus 750 because really on the Bears offense, I don't really trust anybody else at this point either. I also tweeted this out. I think if Justin Fields can't rush in a touchdown this week against the Lions, I'm going to be a little hesitant endorsing him going forward because of how poor this defense is.
Yeah, agreed. And if there wasn't a lot of value on the Bears, Fields was plus 170. This one had the best value. And look, again, the Lions are they're on a historic pace. You've had, like you said, Aaron Jones with 4 touchdowns against them. So yeah, the plus 750 signed me up.
Absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to go into my 4th pick now. This one is another tight end. It's for the Buffalo Bills. We're going with Dawson Knox, anytime touchdown, plus 240 at BetMGM. This might be my favorite pick of the week just because of a lot of the stats that corroborate this kind of pick. Look, he scored twice already this season. He has the same odds as week 2 and week 3 at the plus 240 mark. And if you include playoffs and you look at over the last 12 games for the Bills, he has 7 receiving touchdowns. He's got 3 red zone targets in 2021. 2 of them went for touchdowns. And another reason as well why I like them is the Bills, they are 3rd in total red zone passing attempts, 5th in total passing attempts overall. So when they get to the red zone, they like to throw it a lot more than they run. And the Texans, they've allowed 2 touchdowns to a tight end this year. They're bottom 5 in NFL in catches and yards to the tight end position. Dawson Knox at plus 240 with all the receiving options on the Bills between Diggs and Beasley and Sanders and even Gabriel Davis, who caught my eye. This one, I think, is going to hit this week. And
Zach Cunningham is out, the Texans' best linebacker. So I think the Bills are going to rack up that scoreboard. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Knox.
Yeah, and I bet them before the season started to be the highest scoring team in the NFL. And right now, you're already seeing a couple 35-0 win, a 40 burger against Washington. I just think they're going to put up another 40 today. So let's hear your 4th pick, Brenden.
All right, so I'm going with Javonte Williams plus 200 on the Denver Broncos. Melvin Gordon's a little banged up. I think this is I think this game is going to be the start of when you see Javonte Williams start to kind of turn into running back number 1, not kind of shuffling with Melvin Gordon. I think Javonte Williams starts to get RB1 carries this game. He's already had double-digit carries in all 3 games. So for the series, he scored his first NFL touchdown last week. He's a guy I loved coming out of college this year. If you followed me on Twitter, if you just followed me in general, you would have seen my love for this kid coming out of college this year. The Ravens have actually allowed the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL this year at 5, tied with the Detroit Lions. So I think this is a really solid bet considering you get plus 200 at DraftKings. And look, I think they're going to have to run the ball. I think the Ravens secondary is pretty solid in the red zone. And then you're starting to see teams transition to the run game in the red zone against the Ravens. Just you can tell by 5 rushing touchdowns. So yeah, plus 200, I think is a great bet for pretty much going to be a number 1 running back.
What do you say to the people? I've had a couple of people ask me this coming into the week and coming into the show. What do you think about a bounce back effort from Marquise Brown, Bakersfield Brown, or San Jose Brown instead of Hollywood Brown, whatever you want to call him? I've seen him around the plus 175, plus 180 range. Denver's secondary pretty good, but just with the way that he's been utilized this year and just how bad he looked in week 3 against the Lions, dropping those touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Maybe we can answer some of the questions here for some of the people who've asked us. What do you think about betting on him this week to score against the Broncos?
Well, I think last week was kind of just an outlier. Like, I do think he's their bottom line number 1 wide receiver. So if you could find him in that like plus 170 range, then it's worth it. But I wouldn't go below that. And again, against this Broncos secondary, it's not worth it. But with Rashad Bateman starting to come back, Sammy Watkins has actually been kind of a disappointment. He is their number 1 wide receiver. He's probably going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the rest of the year. So if you can find him in that top like 160, 170, 180 range, then yeah, I think it's a solid bet. But maybe just not this week.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree, though, on the same verdict of don't take him for less than plus 175. Like, I think that's probably the cutoff for me of when you would want – I mean, he is wide receiver 1, so it is decent odds. But that is kind of where my cutoff for that. Okay, Brenden, this is my last pick of the week. We're going to the Steelers and Packers matchup. And once Marquez Valdes-Scantling got ruled out, I had to go for the wide receiver 2. I'm going with Allen Lazard, anytime touchdown, plus 220. Those odds are available at FanDuel. And as I just said, there's no MVS. So that means he immediately vaults into the second slot on the team, and which is kind of crazy because before MVS was ruled out, he was already playing 65% of the snaps, which is actually more than Marcus Valdes-Scantling. So the fact that he was already playing that and now he's out, I can only see those snaps increasing for week 4. And the Steelers secondary allowed 6 touchdowns passing and 5 to wide receivers already in 3 games. Now they're facing Rodgers at home, who looks as locked in as ever. And I also think he just has the best value overall for a Packer. If you look at the Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones lines, you're not going to get better than maybe minus 150, minus 160 range. I wouldn't be mad if you were considering Robert Tonyan at the plus 180, plus 190 range as well. But looking through the stats, the Steelers have actually defended tight ends fairly well this year and even last year. I just think that from a value standpoint, Allen Lazard is probably the best one, more so than, say, like Randall Cobb, if you're trying to look at him at like plus 300. Going with Allen Lazard, plus 220 from FanDuel for my final pick for Touchdown Town.
I like that too. He had that deep reception last week. He's number 2 receiver now, right? He can get vertical too. He's not like just kind of a short yardage guy and a red zone guy. He can be a deep threat. You've seen the Packers use him down the field. I like this a lot. I was peeking at it before you snagged it. So this is one that I did like a lot.
So those are my 5 picks. But Brenden, you're going to finish us off here. What is your final pick for the 1 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern games?
All right, we are going back to the Logan Thomas well. I've already hit on him once this year. We're going back to him at plus 175. The Falcons' defense against tight ends is atrocious. They've allowed the most touchdowns to tight ends in the league so far. This is a great matchup for him. Again, the Falcons have struggled to contain tight ends. And I think him and Heineke have a connection. You've seen it through, even when he played last year, Taylor Heineke, and you've seen it so far this year. Logan Thomas already has 2 touchdowns through 3 weeks. Plus 175 is great value, in my opinion. I was actually thinking he's going to be in that plus 130 range. When I saw him in that plus 175 range, automatic bet, immediately hammered it. This is probably my second favorite one behind Corey Davis. Plus 175 isn't a ton of juice, but it's worth it in my opinion. And again, the Falcons just defense in the middle is just so bad. So love this one.
These are touchdown scores, man. They're like my kids. They're all my favorites. That's kind of how I have to pitch it as well. Even though the kids usually know which ones are their favorites. So,
of course.
So those are my 5 picks, Brenden. You have 5 solid picks as well. You have the biggest long shot of the week of David Montgomery at plus 7.
I learned from the best, man. I learned from you. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, Kyle Juszczyk right now is still I'll be able to dine out on that kind of touchdown score because last Sunday I went 3-0 for my Sunday Night Football picks after going 0-5. Ended up just having a complete swing of profit for the day. Looked like a legend on Twitter for maybe 1 minute. And then we get to Thursday Night Football. I cashed the Trevor Lawrence touchdown at plus 450 and then immediately looked like a complete idiot when Joe Burrow, I don't care what anybody says, he scored that touchdown. Yeah. And they called touchdown on the field. And there was not conclusive evidence to overturn that. So to me, that's like one of the biggest BS overturns I've ever seen. But I regret it. I will not delete the tweet. I was the idiot who tweeted that out. So you know,
when the ball goes through the extra point, that extra point upright, when the ball goes through, we learned our lesson now.
And let that be a lesson for everybody. I'm good for one of those a year, so hopefully I can be the example so you don't end up looking like an idiot just like I did. So that's all for us today. 5 picks from me, 5 picks from Brenden, all for the 1 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern games. We're going to be doing Touchdown Town every week on Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern on BetsTV. And for people who are looking for our my Sunday Night Football touchdown score picks, I'll have a video coming out later today with those picks. And you can also head over to FTM Bets to get those if you want to get them a little earlier. If you're already subscribed, make sure to follow me on Twitter at GDog5000 and also follow Brenden on Twitter at Brenden Deeg NFP. Thank you for watching Touchdown Town. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.